honestly, Diane, I have to be a bit more careful because you never
Yeah.
know who's listening, right?
Well, this is it. And you were talking about Tanya's Christmas cake, and we are both very, very fond of
Such
it.
big fans.
Big fans of it. But you mentioned that it is something that once you've eaten it, you might just want to hold out driving for a while.
or hanging around the barbecue. Now, Tanya, we meant that as a compliment. It wasn't a criticism. Dropping hints if there's a slice coming our way, that would be really nice.
Well, it'll be a nice big chunk because I did take number 3 out of the oven
Oh,
2
my
days ago.
word.
And as I was listening to you, I had a giggle because I was pouring the sherry into this one because I soak it for about 5 days in glass. Yeah, literally. And then there's about another inch left on the bottle. And then I said to Grant, oh, too bad. I'll just put it all in.
Oh, might as well put a bottle of sherry per cake.
Yeah, so this one's particularly strong, but
Wow.
I did slice it, and it's really tasty. So I will definitely deliver some. Don't you worry.
Wow.
That is so good.
It's become one of our favourite Christmas traditions.
It has.
Actually,
It
is your
has.
Christmas cake. And
Yeah. Well, it's something my mother used to do.
yeah,
Okay.
oh, nice.
She, so I'm taking on the tradition, and she used to give it away as gifts, and that's
Yeah.
what I love doing, and people love that more than anything.
I think so. I think there is something very special about tradition and the fact that for a few years now, Andrew and I have been the recipients to that. But I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about today because I feel like this is something that can help us reflect and go, actually, things were tough, but there are some good things. But then prepare for 2022. And I'm very keen to do this, Tanya, because often I launch myself into the year with very little thought, but I want to be a little bit more thoughtful about things this year. But first, let's talk about doing an inventory of the year that is almost over.
Yes. And look, many people do a bit of an inventory at the end of each night. It's just like writing in your gratitude journal, isn't it? That's a bit of an inventory.
I tend to do inventories on whether we've got enough toilet paper and cat food for the next day, but this is a different type of inventory.
Most definitely. This one is doing an inventory of your heart, of your soul, of your mind, especially because quite often we let those not so good emotions enter into our mind and they stay there, right? But, when you do an inventory of what your year was like, it's sitting down and actually even being really intentional about making it a bit of a ritual, you might say. Go and get a separate journal or a separate one of those big canvas books, that's got no lines on it. And then just start writing, what was my year like? And you can actually go through each month. And what was great about January 2021 and what lessons did I learn? So make it an intentional exercise and it'll help you also clear out some of the stuff that you might be hanging on to,
Yeah.
So taking a look at what was great about the year, but I guess there may well be some regrets or things that you wish could be a little different, right?
Yeah, and aren't they lessons though? Those regrets, that is how we learn.
Yeah.
And I call them lessons learned instead of mistakes because we will always learn from that. And, also to forgive yourself because sometimes when we make a not so good decisions, we hang on to it and we beat ourselves up. But by doing that, we then continue to not make such great decisions because we haven't let go all the reprimanding of ourselves for some of those decisions that weren't so good. So really let go of stuff that's holding you back. Really be intentional about releasing, but also seeing the beauty in everything that happened in your year, even the tough stuff.
I really love this as a concept, looking back before we go forward, doing an inventory on 2021 and then being very intentional about 2022. Now, we've had a couple of years where it's been quite tricky to plan because the things that we planned got put on hold or cancelled or locked down. However, we can still make decisions about what our priorities are, what our focus is going to be, what we can do in terms of personal development. We've still got a lot of choices and decisions.
And this is what is great about being able to go, okay, maybe I can't plan too far ahead, but that also invites us to live more in the present because one way we escape the present moment or the day that we're in is we start fantasizing about the future, But, there's a fine balance. There's nothing wrong with planning and getting excited about stuff, but if it takes you away from today, from the people who are in your life now, the beautiful experiences that you've got now, listening to God's whisper when you hear it in the moment, So that's why I'm always encouraging my clients, get used to just being in today or in this week and embracing it, because as we know, everything can change so quickly.
Yeah.
This is true. But it is good to plan ahead. What are some of the things that you would recommend as we head into 2022, looking forward and maybe trying to create a year where we do a few things differently?
I always say to people, what do you really want? I mean, that is quite a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What brings you joy? But you know what? A lot of people find it really hard to answer those questions. They've forgotten. So I always encourage people to have a goal, have that bullseye to focus on, because if they don't, then you might find yourself floundering. But also rediscover what makes you really, really happy. Let joy be your GPS as you look forward. You don't want to put a ladder up against a wall and realize that you've had it up against the wrong wall. Remember that saying?
Exactly.
So know what you want. And I always say, follow your joy, follow your bliss, and that is where we will actually find our home if we follow that.
That is so good.
I think so.
Making joy your GPS. And I suppose, yes, there are some things that are still uncertain, but in terms of who we're wanting to be, who we want to be as people, how we want to grow spiritually, those are choices that remain with us, right?
Yes. And I always like to include God in my decision making and in my planning, and just saying, okay, Lord, what is it that you want for me in this life? And that way, when I feel that peace, when I really hear his whisper, I go, okay. And that actually helps me with clarity and certainty on the steps forward. So that's a little trick there that I use personally.
Making God a part of the whole thing as we look to the year ahead, and also as we look back as well. Hey, Tanya, it is always a joy to catch up with you. I'm pretty excited about this list here, and I am going to take a look at the year that was, and I'm going to start getting excited about 2022, whatever is thrown at us, right?
Absolutely. And look, you can also both get excited about some Christmas cake coming your way.
Certainly will be.
Oh, very good indeed. Hey, Tanya, of course, if people can connect with you, that can happen online, tanyaunkovic.com, of course, and links from there to all sorts of good stuff. And continue to enjoy your Christmas preparations. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.